What's happening, everybody? Happy Monday, and welcome to the Rookie Rundown Mock Draft Edition. On this week's show, we are going to do a 3-round Superflex tight end premium mock draft, and with me tonight, I've got 4 of the boys from the DWZ Football Network. I'm going to go, we'll go clockwise around the horn. The guy if you're watching live on YouTube, and you should be watching live on YouTube, in the upper right-hand corner of the broadcast is Mr. Kyle August. You can find him on Twitter at KyleMonth8. Kyle, how you doing, buddy? Welcome to the Rookie Rundown.
Doing good, bro. Happy to wrap up the weekend with you today and hang out with you gents as we do a little mock draft here.
Yeah, man, I'm excited. We got a 1-round mock draft in last week with some of these same guys, as well as Lou Dog at Lou Dog Sports, co-host of one of our other mock drafters tonight. And who else am I missing from the? Oh, missing your co-host. None other than
Mr. Jake Rip.
Rip. Why you put so much emphasis on the Ake? Cool Whip. Cool Rip. And my normal co-host on this show, Mr. Dallas Hyder at Salad Galore on Twitter. Dallas, what's going on?
Oh, it's hanging, man. We were talking about it a little bit before. Finals are this coming up week, but I'm excited, everyone listening, because you will have my undivided attention in the near future to talk all the rookies you've been dying to hear about and all those 3rd and 4th round sleepers for all your rookie drafts. Getting lost in the sauce in our draft we got rolling right now, so I'm all about them rookies.
Man, everybody right now is all about those rookies. For those of you watching live on Twitter or on YouTube, you'll notice Dallas is sans headband. He had the Baker Mayfield headband on last week's show. He left it off. And our final participant in this week's mock draft episode is Mr. Tyler from the DFS show. Yet to be titled. I think I have a title that I want to go with, but it's not my show. And you can follow Tyler on Twitter at Tyler OFF. I get that right?
FF Tyler. It's all good.
I got the O.
You did.
FF Tyler O. So what's going on with you, man? You're just taking a little bit of a summer hiatus, just chilling, getting ready to do some DFS this coming fall.
Yeah, man. This is probably my 4th year doing the podcast content thing, and I think last year burnt myself out a little bit, so I'm taking a decent hiatus here, focusing on redrafts and DFS content. So just enjoying myself, jumping on, doing some dynasty stuff when needed. Doing a bunch of startups right now, doing some rookie drafts as we speak. So happy to talk about it. Excited we're jumping into the 3rd round because I think there's a lot of interesting picks there as well. So I'm ready to get this rolling.
Yep, here in just a second, I'm going to share my screen. But before we do, we want to make sure just to reiterate the parameters in which we are drafting by. So again, we're going to do 3 rounds. We're going to do Superflex. We're going to do tight end premium. That is my preferred format of playing. I know a lot of these guys here play Superflex, but we wanted to make sure, and it was the idea of Kyle. He was the one who put the first one together, that we did a 1 QB. I think a lot of times in the dynasty space, we do this for each other. We do it to where, oh, hey, we only play Superflex and we only play tight end premium, so it doesn't everybody. And I think it was a very good call on last week's FF Smackdown with Kyle and Jake that we dug back into our 1 QB roots because that's where a lot of leagues are. So, but tonight, for us with the fanciest of pants, we are going to do a Superflex tight end premium. But we're going to do this FF Smackdown style. What does that mean? Well, Kyle, last week, he threw us a curveball. Last week, we all took 2 separate teams, and we drafted every pick. Tonight, we're going to do this the old school FF Fellas way. The FF Fellas is where we will all draft our own individual picks, but we'll let the algorithm, we'll let the computer from Sleeper do the rest. Does that sound good? All right, so what I'm going to do, I am going to fire up the draft board. There it is for those of you watching live on Twitter or YouTube. And you will see that Mr. FF Tyler O has taken the 102. I have taken the 103, as in to snipe Tyler O. We have Kyle right there in the dreaded 107. And you can't quite see it yet on the screen, but Dallas has taken the 112. So I'm ready if you guys are ready.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. I am beginning draft Yes, confirm beginning of the draft. All right, team one. Interesting. They went shocker, Trevor Lawrence. All right, on to you.
All right, so it's an easy spot, but I at least wanted to talk about it because it's something that I've been going through on my head, and I always love hearing the feedback from y'all. So it's Trey Lance or Justin Fields for me at the 102. I've been going back and forth before the draft even happened. I was definitely on the Field side of things. After the draft has happened, I'm leaning the Trey Lance side of things, to be completely honest with you. We talked a little about it last week, but I think what it really boils down to is two things. One, the investment, the draft capital that was put into getting Trey Lance. I mean, the 49ers made it very clear what their intentions were on moving up. Obviously, there was some Mac Jones smoke flying around, but Trey Lance is their guy. And the second piece of that is I have a lot more faith in the 49ers, front office, administration, what have you, than I do the Bears. I think the Bears made a great move. Don't get me wrong. Like drafting Fields, great move. All for it. But when I look at it long term, I got to go with my guy, Trey Lance here. I think he's going to be the guy for years to come. The Bears in a couple of years, if things don't go right, who knows what happens? There could be some changes going on. There's just some uncertainty there. Like not enough to where like I'm fading Fields, but when push comes to shove, Fields, Lance staring me in the face, I got a lot more faith in Trey Lance and the 49ers organization. So for me, this is Trey Lance.
All right, he is pushing the button on Trey Lance. So I will throw it to Kyle. First, Kyle, what are your thoughts on the Trey Lance pick? I'm very much similar. For those of you, again, watching on YouTube or on Twitter, you'll notice I paused the draft for a second so we can have this conversation. Kyle, what are your thoughts on Trey Lance versus, say, Justin Fields, Zach Wilson, or return of the Mac Jones here at 102?
Yeah, and I think Tyler really covered a lot of the points that why I'm leaning Trey Lance as well. I think when you're sitting here in rookie drafts right now, if you in Superflex, if you have one of those first three picks, you really can't go wrong, right? You're going to get a really solid quarterback. Even at 4, you're still going to get a guy that if you want to lean quarterback at that position, you're going to be good to go. But I think the top 3 picks in Superflex are locked and loaded. These 3 quarterbacks, and I lean Lance for the same reasons. He's already got solid weapons in George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk. Deebo Samuel, for me, isn't a guy that I've loved for fantasy purposes, but he's just a solid NFL player that you can get involved. He does, good things. And the most important name out of all of this is Kyle Shanahan. This is a team and organization that is going to have continuity from the top down for years to come. This is Nagy's last stance, right? Like if he doesn't hit on Fields ASAP, he's gone. They're all gone. Pace is gone. I live outside of Chicago. I know the heat is on this organization, and they had to go make this move because they were going to die with Andy Dalton. So they did the right thing. They went and got their guy. Great move by the Bears. But I got to lean Lance. I just think he's in a more secure spot. But it's weird because in like 1 QB leagues like we did last week, I would actually lean either of these quarterbacks potentially over T-Law because their upside is so big with the rushing ability and everything. Like I think these guys are both solid options, so you really can't go wrong with any of these, but I would lean Lance if I had the 102 myself.
Yeah, Lance is my QB2 personally on my rookie board. Now, I'm going to unpause the draft because I want to let Dallas comment on my comments here when I take my guy. My guy for me, pretty simple. In a super flex, I am going to go – I wish I wasn't a chicken shit. But in a super flex, you got to pull the trigger on Justin Fields. I'm going to let the computer. Why did it not take Mr. Fields?
Boom.
There we go. It's rolling.
Perfect. So we'll let the computer do its thing, and then we'll hit pause in just a second. So it went Jamar Chase. That's where I wanted to go. Najee Harris, ETN. And then it's on. Before we do that, I am going to hit pause button again. And so I went Justin Fields, and I wanted to go Jamar Chase there. I know there's a lot of talk about the running backs. Here's the one thing, and I've been the contrarian on Justin Fields the whole time. But it's like the whole thing with the Bears front office since the Mitch Trubisky pick basically blew up in their face. Idiots, dumbasses, idiots, dumbasses, and dumbasses, and idiots. It's been that way the whole time. And then all of a sudden, they trade up, and by all accounts, they traded up a goodly sum to go up and get Justin Fields. And now all of a sudden they're rocket surgeons. They're geniuses. They've got it all figured out. I'm like, wait a second. This guy was a dumbass 2 weeks ago, but because he traded up for a player that Twitter likes, all of a sudden he's a genius. And there were a lot of smart front offices that passed on him. For me, he's a which way could you go candidate. I could totally see Justin Fields coming in, setting this league on fire. But I ask myself, what do smart organizations like San Francisco and Kyle Shanahan, and people can talk all they want about the Carolina Panthers, that is one of the smartest, if not the smartest owner in the league. David Tepper is a hedge fund bajillionaire. He literally paid cash for his team. So doesn't mean that he has football intelligence, but it means he's a very, very smart guy. And I'm asking myself, along with other front offices that didn't trade up, that could have traded up, what do they know that I don't know? But what I do know is that he is a very athletic quarterback. He is a very gifted quarterback. He has got middle-of-the-road weapons. And it's a Superflex world. If you don't have solid QBs in Superflex, you're dead in the water. Kyle mentioned it earlier. Love the upside of Justin Fields with his feet. So I'm going to throw this one to Dallas. Now, Dallas is a closet Bears fan. He has a little bit of
I was going to say they're all closet Bears fans. You don't have to call them that. They're just Bears fans then.
All right, Dallas. I'll tell you what. I'm going to let you do this, Dallas. You tell us your thoughts on the Fields pick as a fan, and then throw it back to Tyler to make his pick. Back to Kyle to make his pick.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. So I respect everything that everyone said. You're all wrong. Justin Fields should have been the second overall pick. Personally, a little bit of bias, yes, both from Ohio State and Chicago. We kind of went over this last week when I picked him at the 111. But for me, when I look at Justin Fields and what you're getting, you are getting the highest rushing upside of any quarterback in this year's draft. And it's not particularly close. He is faster than Cam Newton. He's about the same size as Cam Newton. He is a monster in the read option offense, which people forget. David Montgomery actually runs better out of the shotgun than he does out of any other formation. If you look at his rushing stats, he does a lot better out of shotgun, which is something that Justin Fields is going to bring to the table that we didn't really have with Mitchell Trubisky, although he did have wheels. But when I look at Justin Fields, cannon of an arm, his deep accuracy is pinpoint. It's up there with Trevor Lawrence's. And the only concerns that a lot of people have, I feel like, are narratives that we've been creating. There weren't all these glaring holes in his game when he was playing last year. And then he goes up and he plays in many ways harder competition than what Trevor Lawrence did this last year, put up comparable stats once again with less turnovers. He had 2 bad games, which I don't know if you guys have heard Northwestern's head coach's interview that he's had regarding Justin Fields, but he basically goes in and explains that Justin Fields was hurt a majority of that Northwestern game, which is the one game that everyone holds against him the most this last year. He said that he took a hit in the second quarter and the entire defensive scheme changed because he saw immediately that he was not going to be able to run the same way that he did. So they turned on the Jets. Still ended up winning the game, but that's the one thing that people hold against him. Does his play recognition have to speed up? Yes. I don't care. He, like Memphis said, he's going to light the NFL on fire. Plus, I already bought a jersey. So, this is how it goes. Every time I buy a Bears jersey, the player balls out rookie contract. Team fucks it up somehow. There's my one cuss word today. Does it somehow, and then we drop him after the rookie contract. It happened to Kyle Fuller. It's going to happen inevitably to Justin Fields, but I need Ryan Pace gone. I'll end my Bears rant. Kyle, let's hear what you're doing.
Oh, I love it. And again, being around Bears fans nonstop forever, it's just the ups and downs that they go through is always enjoyable from the outside looking in. But I'm sitting here at the 107 now in this mock. And honestly, if you have the 107 in a Superflex tight end premium, you couldn't have asked for this board to fall better than it did right here because Travis Etienne, the system put here, auto drafted at 106. So as much as I like Etienne, he's definitely a top 8 pick for me, kind of regardless of, the format, whether it's, whether you're looking wide receiver. I think Etienne's a guy worth taking there. But in this format, you're staring down Zach Wilson, fourth quarterback off the board if you need a QB, and obviously quarterbacks are extremely valuable in Superflex. You don't need me to tell you that. But you're also staring down Kyle Pitts right here in tight end premium. And this guy obviously taken the highest that tight end has been taken ever, right? This dude is supposed to ball out. He's paired with Matt Ryan for at least a few years. And when you're looking at the tight end landscape from year to year to year, if you don't have a difference maker, man, like you're really you're losing that position every single week when you go up against the Kelseys and the Kittles and Waller the last few seasons. So, the cop out here is just like, well, if you need a quarterback, you take Zach Wilson and you're thrilled that you got him at 107. But I think if you're going to try to really shoot, for higher upside and a true difference maker, I don't think Zach Wilson is a true difference maker. I think he can be a starter for you in a super flex league for sure, and a guy that hopefully is there for years to come. I like what they added there in New York with bringing in Corey Davis in free agency, Denzel Mims in year 2, and then obviously taking more in round 2 of the NFL draft. But I'm going to go Kyle Pitts. I just think that, if you're going to have to wait it out, and he's a guy that people are probably going to be coming after towards the end of the season, but you just hold out hope, and this guy should be a huge, big-time difference maker for a tight end premium league. So I would take him at 107.
All right, well, the computer's doing its thing. We're going to put Dallas on the board here in just a second. And apologize, I'm pausing the draft, so will be a little difficult to read. So Kyle took Kyle Pitts. I think it could have been in the name. I really don't know for sure. Then the computer went Zach Wilson, then Jalen Waddle, then Devonta Smith, then Javonte Williams. So I want to comment on the Kyle Pitts. This is the spot where I feel comfortable taking Kyle Pitts. And I know that a lot of our friends were having rookie drafts in the FFPC this weekend. I know Kyle Pitts was flying off of the board at the 101. But if I had the 101, and even in a tight end premium, I'm still going to take one of the 2 running backs. If it's a 1 QB tight end premium, yes, those do exist. I'll be the first to admit they're not plentiful, but they do exist. And it would not matter to me. I would much rather at the 101 take, maybe ETN, maybe Harris, or obviously Trevor Lawrence in a super flex. And then if it's tight end premium, I'll take Pat Freiermuth at the 201. Or maybe I'll reach up and I'll take a Tommy Tremble or someone like that with the 301. But I cannot go 101 tight end. It is against everything that I stand for as a human being. And for that reason, I am going to turn it over to Dallas. Now, Dallas, you are getting ready to go on the clock. Are you ready for me to resume this clock?
Yes, I am.
All right, we are resumed.
Yeah. So this is a very annoying thing for a lot of people that they are going to find this year. The champion in your 12-team league is going to have the pick of the litter of a person at a position other than tight end that is going to make a difference for their team. And that's not something you can typically say at the 112. But this year, sitting at the 12, I'm between 3 people. So it would be predicated based off of the positional need that I have as the reigning champion. Do I need a quarterback? If so, I'm taking Mac Jones. Do I need a wide receiver? If so, I'm taking my highest rated wide receiver left, which for me would be Rashad Bateman, but also my wide receiver 4 is Elijah Moore, who is also still on the board. Then if you need running back, you have 2 options. It's your pick of the litter, depending on which situation you like better, between Trey Sermon or Michael Carter, who has no one in front of him. So for me, with it being a super flex, I will take just the pure value pick, as I've often said is usually what I do if I'm at the back end. So I'm going to be taking Mr. McCorkle Jones just due to the fact that it is a super flex, and based off of team 1's needs, there's no way in hell I'm allowing him to get 2 quarterbacks in a super flex draft because he is completely reshaping his team. So highest value, what can I get from the player if I decide to trade him as the champion? Even if I don't need quarterback, I'm going to get the most value trying to move Mac Jones as opposed to Trey Sermon or Bateman. So that is why I'm going quarterback.
Well, I like the Mac Jones pick. I've liked Mac Jones all along. Now, I'm going to throw this one to Tyler. He's on the clock next. I'm not going to hit the resume button just yet. But, Tyler, my first question is do you buy that Cam Newton's going to be the starter week 1 And if Josh McDaniel, the offensive coordinator in New England, can craft an offense that both Cameron Newton and McCorkle, so Cameron and McCorkle are working together. If Joshua McDaniel, see, we'll go full name for everybody. If Josh McDaniel can create and craft an offense that allows both guys to thrive, not only would I be impressed, I might be willing to allow the NFL to get this man another head coaching job. But what say you, Tyler? What do you think about the McCorkle Jones in New England fit? And then give us your pick. When you're ready, give me the sign, and I'll resume the draft.
So I think the fit is good. There are elements to Mac Jones's game that do mirror Brady's, and this is not me saying that he's going to be the next Tom Brady. Far from it. I think he's a fine prospect. When I look at him play, I think he's walking in a situation when he can succeed if things do go right. But I also think that the Patriots are putting themselves in a position to play like the old school bully ball, going to be contrarian, where they're just going to have the line the trenches with the big guys, run the football. With that said, I think Mac Jones can succeed, but I do think Cam Newton does come out as a starter. I wouldn't even be shocked if Cam Newton plays more games this season than Mac Jones does. Mac Jones is the future. I think he's a great pick at 112 because this is Superflex dynasty we're talking here. Like, he's going to be around for a while. I'm just not to derail here too far, but I think people are just like, have already just wrote off the Patriots because they've had one bad year. Like, oh, Brady's gone. I guess the Patriots suck. But, like, we're talking about Bill Belichick, like the legitimate GOAT here. Like, this guy has built dynasties. This guy is for real. And although I don't think Mac Jones is one of the more talented guys, he's my QB5 in this class, I think he's good enough to succeed in the Belichick offense if things go well, or McDaniel's offense, or the Belichick system, I should say. So I like Mac Jones. I'm not fairly certain that he's going to start right away. I still like Cam Newton to start majority of the year. But with that said, Cam Newton was not looking great last year. You can blame that on COVID or what have you. But at the same time, it's Mac Jones' team going forward, but Cam Newton's familiar with it. We're going to be seeing Cam Newton out the gate. I think I see people talking about the red shirt season for Mac Jones. I'm not sure I'm ready to go necessarily that far. But at the same time, if you're drafting Mac Jones to be your starter out the gate, which I hope you're not at 112, you might be in a little bit of trouble because I don't think he's going to be there week one, but still a fine pick at 112. I think he's going to succeed. I think he's going to be solid. I think like a ceiling for fantasy purposes, we could be looking at, say, like a Kirk Cousins, the very solid quarterback that everyone's happy to have in their QB2 spot and their super flex spot. But quarterbacks are currency. So at 112, man, I'm here for it.
All right, I'm going to hit the resume draft button, and sir, now you are on the clock.
All right, so a little salty to see Mac Jones and Rashad Bateman go in front of me here. I thought Rashad Bateman would fall. I think typically in rookie drafts he would fall, but of course this is our famed algorithm. So Bateman did not fall, putting me in a little bit tougher of a decision. I'm going with Trey Sermon here. I've been pretty high on Trey Sermon throughout the draft process before he went to the 49ers. Doing a little bit of a 49er stack here, it looks like, with Lance and Sermon, but they're the future there. I look at Sermon, and I know that he doesn't necessarily have the stats to back it up, but from what I've seen from him, he is a physical back. He is he's a tough guy, great ball security, great balance. I think when I watch him play, I'm like, that's an NFL back. But like what you saw at Ohio State wasn't necessarily the production of what you'd say, like, this guy's going to be an absolute bell cow, or this guy's going to be a fantasy stud or an NFL stud. But everything I've seen points that way. I planted my flag before the draft. He went to an ideal landing spot. Again, similar to the vein in which I talked about Mac Jones. Mostert's there this year. Jeff Wilson's there this year. But what people I think are forgetting about Trey Sermon is those guys are gone next year. Like Mostert's contract's up. Jeff Wilson's contract's up. There's nobody standing in Trey Sermon's way going forward after this year. So although it might be a little bit frustrating to own Trey Sermon or roster Trey Sermon, I should say, going into the 2021 season, as you're going to have a rookie quarterback trying to figure things out. I'm sure Mostert's going to be getting some play. I'm sure Jeff Wilson's going to be getting some play. I expect there to be some play from Trey Sermon. He's probably going to be decent. I wouldn't expect the world from him out the gate, just considering the circumstances. But we're looking down the line here. And I think when I'm looking at 2022, and we're looking at drafts going into the 2022 drafts, it would not shock me for people to see Sermon as like a top 15 to 12, top 12 back. I think he's that good. I think he has that talent. I think he's in the right situation. We've already been singing the praises of Shanahan. So I think again, if you're looking for a running back to come out the gate right away that can win the starter job to be an instant impact, I think maybe Michael Carter would be the way that I would lean, but I'm looking for the long game here. I think Trey Sermon's more talented. I think he's in a better situation. I think going down the line, Trey Sermon is the guy that I would want that's left on this board. So this is a Trey Sermon pick for me, especially with Bateman off the board.
Well, you took the guy that I was certainly interested in. So now I'm in a pickle. I wanted Trey Sermon, but if you're watching on YouTube, again, this is the importance of when we do these mock drafts of having the subscription over at YouTube. I mean, it's free. Just turn the notifications on. I'm showing the running back board currently. And when it gets past a certain guy that if you're a regular on this show, Dallas is a big fan of this guy. And once you get past him, the drop at running back becomes precipitous. And because of that, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. You heard my co-host. You heard Dallas. I'm going to resume the draft. I am taking none other than Michael Carter. And the reason why I am taking Michael Carter, if my computer will work with me, this works so much better in pre-production. There's the spinning wheel. So I'm going to pause this for a second because I will talk about Michael Carter and why I took him. I basically took Michael Carter because, again, I'm a big draft running back, trade for wide receiver guy, and this computer listens like my son. We'll cover some of these guys, but there are a lot of wide receivers coming up in this draft, and there are some guys that I'm going to take flyers on later in the draft, but I would much rather take and we'll start talking about these names. And by the way, gentlemen, this is where we earn the big bucks over here at the Dynasty Warzone, because this is where we're really helping people. This is the filth. If you've seen, I covered this on one of the shows last week, the Batman movie, where Commissioner Gordon looks at the young Gordon Levitt character who ends up being Robin, and he's like, I hope one day you have a friend like I had who will plunge their hands in the filth so you don't have to. That's what we're going to do tonight. We get into this late second, early third. We are plunging our hands in filth. That is the rest of this rookie draft. So I took your man, Michael Carter. What do you have to say about Michael Carter's landing spot with the JETS, Jets? I wish he had went three picks earlier. That third round draft capital, but we're gonna go 402's okay. What do you think, Dallas?
Yeah, it's a situation. I kind of touched on it last week when I picked him in our second round, about the same place as you. It's one of those landing spots where we were hoping a running back was going to land, and regardless of the place and the round that he was drafted in, at the end of the day, he probably would have been picked earlier by the Jets. So Joe Douglas has actually come out and said if they hadn't traded their 2 third-round picks to move up for Elijah Vera Tucker, they would have been just ecstatic to get Carter at 61. But they were even happier at the fact that they then were able to get him around later. So when I look at Michael Carter, slightly upset he did not stick with number 8 by going to the Jets, because I thought that would have been pretty cool now that they switched the numbers. Why not? I'm actually kind of sad a lot of guys aren't doing that. Why aren't they sticking with their college numbers? But number 32 for the Jets is going to get some work. There's no one really there that can claim the role. I think that they brought in Tevin Coleman personally just because he knows the system. He's the elder statesman that's going to be able to teach it to guys like LaMichael Pirine. If Josh Adams is still on the roster, I'm not actually positive about that, and Michael Carter. But when it comes to a full skill set, the best running back on the team right now is Michael Carter. He does everything that you want from a running back. The only thing that people are concerned about are his size parameters. And yes, he's not the biggest, but he proved he was at times a better runner between the tackles than Javonte Williams was. He is electric. He's got burst, and he's one of those people that his metrics honestly didn't do him justice, is what I would say to him, because he was one of those guys at North Carolina that was able to pull away from the runners that were coming after him when he was in between the tackles or on the outside. He was able to basically break away those long plays that Javonte Williams was not able to, and that was why he's considered the lightning to his thunder. So I'm excited to see him play. I comped him a while back, as you guys know, to Ray Rice, and I think that he's going to be very effective for the Jets in a running scheme that people are clamoring for a running back at. So I'm very happy that you took it.
All right. Well, I love the vote of confidence from my co-host to help me sleep better tonight. While the computer ran a little bit, the next player off the board at the 204 was Amon-Ra St. Brown, a guy whose ADP has skyrocketed due to the fact that he's the perceived only real wide receiver of dynasty record. I mean, I know there's a thing called Brashad Perriman, a Quintez Cephas, not to be confused with Hank Williams Jr., who's known as Bo Cephas. And there's another guy there too that I cannot remember. Tyrell Williams, formerly of the Raiders, and none of those guys get you really excited in a dynasty. Then Rondale Moore, a guy whose stock has slipped a little bit. It's a little short, if you know what I'm saying. Dwayne Eskridge, who ended up in Seattle with Russell Wilson. And then that puts our man Kyle on the clock. One thing before I turn it over to Kyle is that you can tell that there's no way to turn in tight end premium on Sleeper, because at some point you got to think some of the other tight ends would. I'm going to throw that to Kyle. And Kyle, you going to go back-to-back tight end stack here? I'm dying to know. What are you going to do?
Heard you wouldn't.
I would have, I think the fireman is right there at this in a normal draft. I think because a few of these names for me, like Estridge and St. Brown, are not mid seconds. St. Brown is the only show in town in Detroit as of right now. I think that can quickly change when we're sitting here a year from now, and they're going to bring in more bodies. They're going to surround whatever quarterback they have heading into 2022 with more than just St. Brown, a 4th-round draft capital wide receiver. I don't think there's any reason to take him. When you look at Estridge, yes, he has the draft capital being taken in the 2nd round, but they just re-upped Tyler Lockett. He ain't going anywhere. Some boy named DK Metcalf as well, I think, is going to be taking up some targets. And they don't apparently let Russ cook or something. So I don't know how many passes they have to go around there. But if you're sitting here again, 207, I'm thrilled because there's still some guys I really like. So I'm not going tight end. I'm going to go with Jets wide receiver Elijah Moore. He was taken as the 2nd pick in the 2nd round of the NFL draft. He's paired with Zach Wilson, who I passed on in round 1, but I think he's going to see a lot of valuable targets in that slot. Jamison Crowder is all but gone from that team. They will cut him and save a ton of money and keep Zach Wilson supplied with plenty of weapons for what they've developed over the last year plus here with the draft, 2 2nd-round wide receivers, and Corey Davis in free agency. So if you're sitting here at 207, 19 overall in Superflex, and you can land Elijah Moore, you're thrilled about that, I think, because I think this guy's going to have instant impact on your fantasy team. So I love it.
Yeah, I've not been in most of my drafts. Again, I do a lot of Superflex tight end premium leagues, and I've not seen Moore fall really past like the 204, 205. And that's a steal. I don't know. But again, I'm not blaming Sleeper, because as if to criticize their algorithm, all of a sudden at the 209, Pat Fryermuth went. After Kyle took Elijah Moore, there went Kadarius Toney, another guy. Was having a group chat with Riley Bymaster of Dynasty Trade Calculator. We're in a draft together right now, and our consensus on Kadarius Toney is that we only hate, or have only been told to hate, Kadarius Toney because Twitter hates Kadarius Toney. But the weird thing is that if you watch mock drafts, and I'll admit I probably have a mock draft problem, is that I read all of them. But every mock draft, from Daniel Jeremiah to Todd McShay to what's his name? Mel. I started calling him Mel Brooks, but Mel Kiper Jr. with his hair.
Mel Chocula.
Mel Chocula. I mean, everybody had. I mean, and these guys, we make fun of these guys for some of the draft picks and some of the mocks they do, but these guys are connected. They knew that Kadarius Toney was going in mocks, and not only did they have him in the 1st round, they had him between 20 and 24 in just about all those mock drafts. So it's safe to say the NFL thinks a lot higher of Kadarius than we do. Then it was Pat Fryermuth. I'm going to resume the draft just so I can see the cumbersomeness of the board. Then it went Terrace Marshall. That is the 2nd biggest steal. He should have went, in my opinion, it should have went Elijah Moore, then Terrace Marshall. Kenneth Gainwell at the 211. That's a bit high for me for a running back group that recently got the corpse of Kerryon Johnson. You've got Boston Scott. You've got Miles Sanders, and now you add Kenneth Gainwell. All right, I'm going to hit the pause button. I'm going to go to Mr. Dallas Hyder. Dallas, who are you thinking at the 212, and what do you think of the shenanigans because that's what they are really from like 204 on in this algorithm-based mock draft. What do you think of these shenanigans?
Yeah, I'll start with your latter question first. Shenanigans is very much how I would phrase it. I just checked while you guys were talking. In the 4 rookie drafts that I have taken part of so far, Dwayne Eskridge has not gone before the 303. So he is not getting the actual fantasy draft capital that he got in the real NFL. People realize there's only so many mouths to feed in Seattle, and just because he got draft capital, people have to realize he's replacing David Moore. So you're going to get David Moore plus at the best, which is what? At 600 yards. Like, I don't know exactly what people are expecting out of him, but I think the fantasy community is being a little bit smarter than what our little system gave us here. As for Elijah Moore, right there with you, he is arguably top of the second round for most people, and I don't think he's going to fall any further than that. And Amon-Ra St. Brown, although the landing spot is great, he is not going above Terrace Marshall, Elijah Moore, Rondell Moore. Rondell Moore went at I believe the 109 in one of my drafts yesterday, which is a little rich, don't get me wrong. But yeah, definitely shenanigans. The wide receiver position is the most interesting, I think, in this year's draft, just because everyone has their guys. And that's a perfect segue into one of my guys for the draft this year. Before the landing spot came out, I was big on De'Ami Brown. I am still big on De'Ami Brown. He fits a role for Washington that they didn't have prior to this. They have been missing deep speed. They've been trying to find it, even the last regime. They tried the flyer on Paul Richardson coming out of Seattle. They just can't find the field stretcher. And if there's one thing that Ryan Fitzpatrick does well, it's throw that YOLO ball. And I don't think that's going to change. He's at the back end of his career. He just wants them TDs or to go down burning with the TD hunting, basically. So you're getting a guy who is a burner on the outside, who is very efficient in how he creates separation. He does need to fine tune his route running, but I think early on, he's just going to be filling that deep route role, which really, if you're taking a flyer at the end of the second round, you want the upside guy. I'm not saying it's like best ball, but if you give me a guy who can pop off in my flex for 20 points based off of 3 catches and 120 yards and a touchdown, that's what I'm here for. Again, I'm going based off of value because I'm drafting from the 12. So I'm going to be taking De'Ami Brown out of North Carolina, who is now with the Washington Redskins.
All right, well, he is going to be the complement to one of my favorite wide receivers, which is Mr. Terry McLaurin. Back on the turn at the 301, we'll let the computer make its pick. It took Elijah Mitchell, another running back from San Francisco, so that would stop Tyler from double dipping Shanahan running backs. So, Tyler, is there anything that you want to comment on? Because this is the round that I get the most questions on in rookie drafts, not only from our patron group over at patreon.com/Dynasty Warzone, but really just people in general. This is where it gets really muddy. It gets really funky really quick. What are your thoughts on what's available and what you've seen between the most recent picks?
So a few things that I've done in my actual rookie drafts is obviously if the board fell like this and we had Brown and Marshall sitting at the end of the second draft, at the end of the second round, I wouldn't trade back. But I've been at the end like the 210, the 211, and I've been trading back into the third round and picking up an extra third in 2022 because I just don't see a lot of difference between some of these later second round guys and the third round guys. You're right, it is a bit muddy, but at the same time, if you're sitting in the third round, shoot your shot. Take the guy that you like. Like, I really can't say that there's like smash value in particular with any of these guys left on the board. I look at this board, the guys remaining. There's not a single guy in here that I'm absolutely in love with that has to be on my team. With that said, this is Superflex we're talking about. And I'm sitting in the third round, not loving the wide receivers necessarily. Like, yes, there's guys with good draft capital, but I didn't really like them that much pre-draft. And then there's guys that I like pre-draft that got crappy situations or just, things didn't fall the way I wanted to and they got bad draft. I don't know, but there's just really nothing left that sticks out to me. So with it being Superflex, quarterback is king. Quarterbacks are currency. There's no better time to acquire quarterbacks than in your rookie startups or your regular startups. So for 3-2, at this point in time, I'm actually going to take a shot on my guy, Kellen Mond. He is a guy that I was intrigued with going into the draft. And, off the bat, he wasn't necessarily a guy that I was, super excited about, especially when I found out that he went to the Vikings. But then I started reading into it a little bit, and I found out that the Vikings were actually trying to get Fields. Like, they were trying to acquire a quarterback, and Cousins' contract is coming up here soon. So they're looking into the future. They drafted Kellen Mond. He got pretty decent draft capital in third round. He loved the day 2 stuff, but I mean, that's not too crazy for a quarterback. But it really comes down to with Kellen Mond, for me personally, is he does a lot of things well on the field that I believe aren't necessarily things that can be taught. Right. I think he has good poise in the pocket. I think he responds to pressure very well. We've seen him take a ton of hits in college, and, he gets right back up and keeps playing. He's got good velocity. I think he's a bit raw as a prospect. I think in some conversations I have compared him to not necessarily the play style of Dak Prescott, but like very similar to where like he comes out of college. Not a lot of people are excited about him, but I think Dak Prescott, he had a lot of qualities that you couldn't teach, and he worked on the things that he needed to work on to become an elite quarterback, right? And Dak Prescott is now elite quarterback, but like 3 years ago, if I was like, Dak Prescott's going to be elite quarterback, you'd be like, you're an absolute idiot. Like, just watching him play. Like, I've been touting Dak my whole fantasy football career, and it finally came to fruition. Now, Kellen Mond is not Dak Prescott. I'm not using that as a player-to-player comparison, but what I am saying is Kellen Mond does possess some qualities that I really like in a quarterback that I believe aren't necessarily easy to be taught. And the fact that he's going to the Vikings, where they're clearly looking for their next option after Cousins, and I think that he's sitting a year behind Cousins could yield great results for him. And it's a third round. So taking a shot at a quarterback in a Superflex league in a third round, like, why the hell not? For me, it's easy to pick Kellen Mond here, sit him on your bench, throw him on your taxi squad for a year, and hope he eventually takes over. Quarterbacks are if you don't have a quarterback or good quarterbacks, it's tough to recover in Superflex Dynasty League. So with the guys on the board, let's do it with a quarterback. Kellen Mond, 3-2.
All right, well, good to see the quarterback talk. So here's the thing. I was big into Kellen Mond, but if you're going to draft him, and the same with another guy that I'm going to mention but not going to draft, so I guess I'm like table talking, to use a term in a rookie draft. But Kellen Mond. So here's the thing. Kirk Cousins isn't going anywhere. So when people start clamoring for him, he's got say it with me, $76 million dead cap number this year, $45 million dead cap next year. Now, the Eagles would love for the Vikings to take that mantle as the team with the largest dead cap hit ever on the record, but I don't think they do it. So you're just going to have to be patient, which is fine. I believe that you should leave every rookie draft in a super flex with at least one quarterback, even if it's a reach, even if it's like the guy that I'm getting ready to draft. And I am going to take Mr. Kyle Trask. And the reason why I'm taking Kyle Trask over Davis Mills is because Kyle Trask is one 44-year-old man injury away from being the quarterback of this team. Now, that's not to mean that the blonde bomber, Blaine Gabbert, can't sneak in there and, steal some reps. This is a championship team. It also doesn't mean that the Buccaneers wouldn't, risk a trade, if it happened pre-trade deadline, because this is a team that's got back-to-back Super Bowl aspirations. But I like the draft capital. I like the fact that he'll be under that Tom Brady learning tree. We all like to think that Tom Brady's going to retire at some point, but you know what? You can't prove that. As I've heard it said, with modern medicine and his income, he could live to be like 140, 150 easy. So for me, I am going to resume this draft, and I am going to take Kyle Trask. So we're going to be jumping back to, speaking of Kyle's, a lot of Kyle talk. We got Kyle Pitts, Kyle Trask, Kyle month 8. Kyle month 8, what do you think about my Kyle Trask pick while I actually make the pick?
Yeah, so I mean, you guys, I thought you did, summed it up well here when you're sitting here in the third round. Brown, where Dallas picked him at the end of the second round, that was kind of the breaking point for me. Like, there's maybe only one other guy that I would really consider, and that was Amari Rodgers, who came off the board right after Memphis's pick at the 304. at that point, these are just all darts, whether it's your third rounder, fourth rounder, fifth rounder, whatever you're looking at in your rookie draft. And there's just names that it's really going to be a long shot for them to provide you fantasy value. At the quarterback position, if you are in a super flex league and you've never not had a quarterback, you don't know just the stress that you are put through week in and week out, not having to plug in that second guy or combing through other rosters and being held hostage by your league mates because you don't have a body at that position. And as somebody that watched, had spent all last year trying to fill that backup quarterback spot on rosters that had guys like Phillip Rivers, or I was riding with Mitch Trubisky and Andy Dalton and those names that just turned to dust. You are being taken for a ride for the worst quarterbacks sometimes, just so that you can have a guy to plug in. And then sometimes you have to sit back and say, well, do I just play a non-QB in the super flex spot, which is just leaves the worst taste in your mouth. So I think you guys picking Mond and Trask here at 302, 303 is solid. There's no reason not to walk away with a quarterback. That's what my plan was kind of at the 307. I wasn't sure that I thought I'd have my pick of the litter, but you guys jumped me there a little bit. So no problem there. Amari Rodgers came off the board. So at 307, I'm pretty much just going to steal your guys' strategy because that's what I was looking at. There's nobody here that is of real interest to me at 307. I think the guy that's remaining that's left, you mentioned the name with Davis Mills, drafted by Houston in the third round at the third pick of the third round in the NFL draft. And the thing is, this was their first pick. This poorly run organization had just given away all of their draft capital. They have 1 billion holes to fill, and they took Davis Mills. That should be telling enough that Deshaun Watson is more than likely done in Houston, or will not be there to play for the Houston Texans for part or the entire season with all these all his legal trouble he's been facing. So I think when I look at a guy like Davis Mills, I'm not drafting a guy in a Superflex league where I'm like, hell yes, I'm set now. I have a QB2. I look at that as just instant currency, as Tyler's been throwing around. The minute this dude is said to be the starter for the Houston Texans, you start looking through your team, your Superflex league, and finding that guy that is extremely desperate for a quarterback and just flip him for just instant return on value. I mean, you're going to be able to get way better than a third round pick for a starting quarterback. That's how you sell it the minute that Mills is the starter there. So I don't really think Mills is a guy that is it's going to be a difference maker. He's really unproven in the college level even. So to be picked here at the early third, that should tell you a lot, not just about Mills, but that situation in Houston. They're desperate for a quarterback. They're looking for a body. And if he's the guy, if he's the starter, he's going to give you much more in return by flipping him to the needy team. So I'm going to kind of follow suit here a bit, I guess. Maybe that's boring, but I think it's the right way to go. And I'm going to go Davis Mills at the 307.
Well, while I don't love the pick, I love the strategy because he is going to be gone very quickly. So even if he starts, if it's, Tyrod Taylor, whomever, it really does not matter who that quarterback is. That team's going to be terrible. They're probably going to have a 101, and they're going to be they're going to be drafting a quarterback. I've heard it said that Deshaun Watson is a toxic asset until he gets all of this cleared up. And I like Davis Mills. I think I've got to get lucky to move him. So I would much rather draft some of these guys that just went off the board, like Nico Collins, like Palmer from the Chargers. But Dallas, you get to bring this thing home. Are you ready to resume this draft?
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm actually going to be taking someone that is not going to be on the board for you at 312. Specifically, as Memphis mentioned, we are doing a tight end premium. And there is one tight end that definitely would have gone before Tommy Tremble, I think, and who is set up, in my opinion, for long-term success rather than short-term success, and that's Hunter Long. So Hunter Long out of Boston College ended up in Miami. And with this man, I know what you're saying. Well, Mike Gesicki has finally broken out. He's finally getting the receiving targets. He's finally meshing with Tua later on in the season. And all of those things are correct. But what also people are forgetting, it is Mike Gesicki's contract year this year. He is going into his fourth season with the Dolphins. He's not a top-end tight end, and you're seeing a lot of top-end tight ends getting paid. I think he's going to want to get paid, But if there's one thing he does not do well, it is being a well-rounded tight end. The only thing he knows how to do is receive. He's a horrible blocker, and they only use him basically as a big slot. Basically, I think it was something like 65% of his routes run came out of the slot last year, not attached to the line. So you're looking at Hunter Long, who for a lot of people in the pre-draft process, they were talking about going to potentially New England due to his comparison to what Bill Belichick looks for, a complete tight end who knows how to both catch the ball and block. He was, for many people, the best blocker coming out in this class. And when you add the potential need for a receiving option at the tight end position going into next year as well for Miami, I think it's something that you should definitely be considering in this third round. The fact that it's tight end premium also definitely gives you a little bit of push in the direction to take him as opposed to another guy I was eyeballing. But specifically when I look at Hunter Long, I am thinking about a dart throw that has more potential than anyone else on the board based off of both the scoring format of the league as well as his situation going into the 2022 season as opposed to 2021.
All right, well, there you go. So I'm going to go around the horn and let you guys wrap it up what's going on your shows, except for Tyler. Tyler's on hiatus from being on hiatus. So, Tyler, I will start with you. Is there anyone whose name didn't get called that you want to bring up, or anyone that you that like maybe that recently came off that you want to mention?
I mentioned it last time on the show, so I'm not going to beat a dead horse, but Josh Palmer, 3.9's a steal. I'm definitely in on him. Not necessarily if you need a wide receiver going forward, but I truly think that Mike Williams is leaving, and it's easy to beat out I think Tyron Johnson and Guyton. So Josh Palmer is definitely a guy that I look at in the end of the third or middle of the third, to be completely honest with you. I guess if I had to toss one other name out there, somebody interesting is Chuba Hubbard. Is his name. I think he's a decent prospect. I think if you're looking to grab a running back, I would have probably taken Chuba over Elijah Mitchell, Ramondre Stevenson, and Kylan Hill, the way things fell, to be completely honest with you. And we also know from seeing last year that the second running back, which I'm assuming he would be on the Panthers, has paid off. Like Mike Davis did it. So I would say that Chuba Hubbard still on the board is a little surprising to me, and Josh Palmer slipping to the third is a bit of a surprise as well.
Yeah, I like Josh Palmer a lot. Some of the again, I'm a big draft Nick, and I love reading the non-fantasy spin on these guys. So maybe I can learn a little bit so that when they land on a team, I can put the fantasy spin on those guys. And Josh Palmer is someone that I've become a big fan of. So Dallas, my normal co-host here on the Rundown. Was there a name that you want to throw out there? And what do you have going on besides finals?
Yeah, not a ton going on beside finals this week. Like I said, I am pretty focused on that, but I am excited to start the series that we had talked about on last week's. I've got my first two names. They are two wide receivers that I will be comparing in my first Oklahoma drill of the summer for all of you that are really interested in some big body wide receivers going into their rookie seasons on teams that did not get the draft capital that some people expected them to. Not related to that, though, the one player that I was actually debating taking at the 312 that I did not because of the tight end premium was Daz Newsome. So I had a conversation with a couple of you earlier about this today. So a strategy that I do a lot of times is specifically on teams where there's wide receiver production coming out of college, but you're not really sure who to trust going into the NFL. I have a shotgun approach that I typically do it. So I've done it the last 3 years. I did it with Russell Gage and DJ Chark. I did it with Terry McLaurin and Paris Campbell in 2019. And then last year I did it with Jerry Jeudy and Henry Ruggs based off of the draft position, where I was basically able to get the two top receivers from pretty good offenses that aren't getting that top tier draft capital, basically. Jerry Jeudy fell last year a little bit further than he needed to, so I was able to capitalize on that. But by doing this type of strategy, you are able basically to mitigate that risk that you typically would by last year. If you had reached on Henry Ruggs and not gotten Jerry Jeudy, you'd be sitting this year with just Henry Ruggs on your roster, kind of twiddling your thumbs saying, wow, that was a waste of a pick. But if you're able to get two people from the same team where you're not really sure about their wide receiver production, it kind of mitigates that risk, like I said. So I would have taken Daz Newsome, who I compared. Do you guys remember Nate Washington, old Steeler, Titans wide receiver?
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Real gritty dude. He was on quite a few Super Bowl teams, and those Hines Ward days, the really early Steelers, is where he was. He actually won 2 Super Bowls with the Steelers before he actually broke out with the Titans. But his second contract, when he ended up going, he has that same kind of dog mentality that I look at for my slot receivers. So like the Amari Rodgers, like Daz Newsome specifically, who, again, yeah, you guys are probably just saying this guy just loves his Bears, doesn't he? But when I see Daz Newsome, I do see a really physical player who is electric with the ball in his hands. So he's immediately day one going in as the punt returner for Chicago. And anyone who has that gritty mentality and the shiftiness that he has is going to make it as a slot, at least at the NFL level, if not the fantasy level. So I'll take upside on a guy where Anthony Miller, I don't care what anyone says, is gone at the end of this season, if not before. His time in Chicago, he's rubbed people the wrong way, and he hasn't performed. So it's just one of those late flyers I would definitely keep your eye on.
All right, and then he is the co-host of the FF SmackDown. Kyle, was there anybody that didn't get mentioned that you want to mention? And what's going on with the SmackDown this week?
Yeah, the only other name that I end up getting in the 4th round a lot of times, and probably rightfully so, because he landed in an offense that you don't want to see wide receivers go. But Tylan Wallace is a guy that a lot of people were high on pre-draft. He had some injury concerns, and he was and like you said, Memphis, like, I think well-rounded dynasty owners should be looking at non-fantasy related breakdowns of these players ahead of time too, just to see, what these scouts that are looking at these guys from an NFL perspective, what they see. And Wallace was a guy that was pretty high up a lot of people's boards pre-draft. Lands in Baltimore. Obviously, they took Bateman in round 1. It's a little bit crowded there with Hollywood and Andrews, and you factor in that, like Memphis likes to mention every third show, on the war zone, Lamar only throws the ball 4.6 times a year or whatever. So with that being said, Wallace is somebody that I just kind of stick on the end of my taxi squad in round 4 most of the time, just to see if, Bateman doesn't pan out. We know what Hollywood already is. Maybe Wallace can carve a role out in that offense. But with that being said, on the SmackDown, we're gonna be recording tomorrow night. Jake and myself, we're gonna be taking a look at our quarterback and running back 2020 rankings. Just look at the biggest movers and shakers based off of the fallout of the NFL draft. I know Memphis has done some up and down stock from a dynasty perspective, but Jake and I covered our pre-draft 2020 redraft rankings last month. So we're gonna be taking a look at that and seeing how these guys shake out now that we all know the landing spots.
Well, that's awesome. I'll just throw out the name because it's tight end premium, and I was very surprised because I had nothing on this guy coming into the draft, but he went in the 4th round, and it's Kylan Grayson, drafted by the Colts. That's a homer pick. I'm going full Dallas and, homering for my team. But we have seen this Frank Reich offense feature a lot of tight ends, whether it's been Dallas Goedert, whether it's been Zach Ertz. We've seen flashes even out of Trey Burton last year in Indianapolis. And it's not like Jack Doyle and Mo Alley Cox are going to be confused for Travis Kelce and George Kittle anytime soon. So I just actually drafted this guy at the 507 in a rookie draft. That's a tight end premium league with a 1.75 tight end premium. I mean, the board was pretty picked over. And if I'm going to go huge upside, and I didn't see any running backs there. So I want to thank you guys for all jumping on. Tyler's going, he's 2 weeks in a row. His family won't know what to think. Dallas is here every Sunday, but he's got to get him back to school. And then Kyle, he's going back-to-back nights. Sunday on the Rundown, Monday on the SmackDown. But on behalf of these gentlemen, Kyle, Tyler, and Dallas, my name is Memphis, and here at the Dynasty Warzone, we're just trying to make the world a better place for fantasy football. We'll see you guys real soon. Thanks for tuning in.